The FBI investigation and state's investigation into Rkelly began unlawfully. Mute Rkelly began breaking the law in 2017 in the United States and around the world, violating constitutional 1st, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 14th Amendment rights of Rkelly. When they cut off his income, got him fired by Sony, had music removed from Spotify and other playlists, they violated constitutional rights of all Americans and incited unlawful behavior in their Mute Rkelly campaign. Stop First Amendment rights of Rkelly and all Americans breaking the law in all 50 states, which says you are to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. It's not your burden to prove your innocence. It is the burden of the accuser to prove your guilt. Me Too, Time's Up, women of color violated constitutional 1st, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th Amendment rights of Rkelly, supporting Mute Rkelly in their efforts as they brainwashed America to believe women, which in and of itself is an illegal phrase because women lie. They also preached believe black girls. Again, females of all color lie, and that is not the law. So when they chanted this, when they pushed this across all media platforms, they were breaking the law. These groups conspired to commit terrorist acts on Americans using social media and mainstream media as propaganda machines, as weapons of mass destruction, to push their narrative and attack anyone who wanted to exercise their constitutional rights and follow the law. Question an accuser, you're victim shaming. You're a sympathizer. You became a target on social media for bullying, harassing, and sabotaging your career, your life. You were attacked viciously by all of the people that they followed. You supported anyone that was being accused. You became a target. Surviving Rkelly violated constitutional 1st, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 14th Amendment rights of Rkelly. They presented fraud to the American people, telling partial stories, lies of omission, eliminating people who had positive things to say. We heard from Rick from Public Announcement. They didn't want his story because he wasn't bashing Rkelly. We heard from others that said similar things. They changed stories. They manipulated and skewed the story of Dominique when she went on the show. And they positioned it as you would any other story. If you had anything positive to say about Rkelly, they weren't interested in that. It didn't fit their script. They incited unlawful behavior from Americans, putting Rkelly's life at risk, portraying an innocent man, based on the law in all 50 states, as a monster, a pedophile, a predator, with 0 open cases, 0 evidence in a court of law, 0 decisions by a judge, stating that these are victims, that a crime had taken place, 0 adjudication. We know beyond reasonable doubt, Me Too, Time's Up, women of color, Mute Rkelly, and Surviving Rkelly broke the law, and Rkelly was 100% innocent because Kim Fox, the state's attorney in Chicago at that time, told us so. She said it in her plea, January 8th, 2019.
The recent allegations against entertainer Rkelly and the recent Lifetime documentary series are deeply, deeply disturbing. It is our job here at the Cook County State's Attorney's Office to investigate claims in the interest of justice and of public safety. I'm here today to encourage victims of sexual assault or domestic violence related to these allegations to please get in touch with our office. Please come forward. There is nothing that can be done to investigate these allegations without the cooperation of both victims and witnesses. We cannot seek justice without you.
There were no allegations. There were no victims. There were no crimes. Because if she had that, there was no need for her to do a press conference. There was no need for her to do a cattle call. There was no need for an 800 number. If you have people already in your office, already showing up in your lobby, saying, I'm a victim, here's my evidence, here's my police report, you don't have to do a press conference and you don't have to set up an 800 number because you have people already present to testify. So the fact that she gave the press conference, asked for people to come forward, stated we cannot do it without you, and then put up an 800 number, says when the show aired January 3rd, 4th, 5th, in the 6-part series, no one went to the police. So instead of going to the police, instead of going to have their case investigated over the past 20 or 30 years, they all went straight to television. Because had they gone to the police first, had there been open investigations, there was no need for Kim Foxx to do the press conference and do the 800 number. The fact that she did the press conference on January 8th, she put up an 800 number, she did a casting call, said there was nothing pending at that time. There was nothing open at the time that the show aired. So that means no one saw themselves as a victim. No one believed crimes had taken place. They didn't think enough of what had happened to them in their 20-year history to even go to the police. There were no victims. There were no crimes. There were no open cases that Robert Kelly was being investigated for. There was nothing pending legally. No complaints filed. The DA has access to police reports all around the country, and with a computer search, Kim Foxx knew she had absolutely nothing to charge R. Kelly with. So she set up a hotline after doing her press conference, and she stated in her casting call, we cannot do this without you. Any possible victims of domestic violence or sexual assault by R. Kelly, contact the office. There's nothing that can be done to investigate these allegations without cooperation of both victims and witnesses. We cannot seek justice without you. We need victims to tell their stories. That says this is an innocent man in all 50 states. We have absolutely nothing, but we want to find something. Everyone, please call our hotline. The law in all 50 states says you are to be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law. It is not your burden to prove your innocence. It is the burden of the accuser to prove your guilt. Kim Foxx watched a television show, and as a result of a scripted TV show with actors, she investigated an innocent man. Why didn't she investigate the people that appeared on the show? Why didn't she give them lie detector tests? Why didn't she vet their stories? Why didn't she get evidence from them? She couldn't have, because the show aired January 3rd, 2019 through the 5th. And she did her press conference on the 8th. There was no time to have vetted anyone that appeared on that show. There was no time to investigate the show, investigate the show's producers, investigate every person that was making accusations to see if there was viable legal standing to investigate R. Kelly, if there was probable cause to even investigate Robert Sylvester Kelly. Kim Foxx, in her rush to judgment, based on her own personal feelings, like she said in her interview, I too was a victim. So she was associating with these actors and aligning with them because she had experienced something. And she felt that she should investigate an innocent man instead of investigating the stories. That is against the law. That is a violation of constitutional rights. It is violating all American rights and breaking the law in the state of Illinois, but also in all 50 states and around the nation. Kim Foxx broke the law when she opened an investigation into Rkelly, and she violated her duties as an officer of the court.
So someone calls, tells us, what information they have, whether they're a witness or whether there's something that's happened to them. We then put them in touch with someone from our office, either through victim witness or through our investigations unit.
Right. Now, you have seen the docuseries.
I have.
And what are your initial thoughts?
I watched the series as someone who has lived in Chicago my whole adult life, worked at the state's attorney's office during the original trial. So it wasn't that some of the allegations were new related to pre-2008, but watching and listening to the women who said that they were survivors of what happened, it was heartbreaking. It was sickening. Again, these are allegations, and that is why it's important that we recognize that this is not, we don't have an open investigation because of the docuseries, but if there were people who have been impacted or affected, we certainly believe that we should know about that and do an investigation if warranted.
There were no victims, there was no evidence, there was no crime. So that means everything that happened before January 9th, 2019 was illegal. If the behavior of Me Too, Time's Up, Mute Rkelly, Surviving Rkelly, Kim Foxx, Avenatti, Gayle King, and mainstream media was illegal, and it was, then the FBI investigation, the state's investigation, was illegal because it sits on an illegal foundation. The premise was illegal. You cannot have an illegal beginning, an illegal middle, an illegal foundation. Based on American law, Rkelly was 100% innocent of everything as of January 2019. The American Bar Association Rules of Ethics 3.6 state, you should not take a case if you're affected in any personal way and not permit personal interest to affect your judgment in any case. Fox stated in front of the press after watching a TV show that she was sickened, repulsed. I too was a victim of molestation, she said. This is a bias, and from that moment on, she proved she could not do her job equitably. She could not be fair. She did not have the mental acuity, and her judgment was compromised. Rule 3.8 for prosecutor statements in public state, refrain from making extrajudicial comments that heighten public condemnation. To publicly say she is sickened, she is repulsed, I too was a victim, says these people are victims. And in order for there to be a victim, there has to be a perpetrator. When you say, I too am a victim, there's a presumption that these people that were on a TV show who she'd never met, no lie detector tests were given, they're victims too, which by default presumes Mr. Kelly's guilt. This absolutely violates his constitutional rights. It prevents him from having a fair trial. It taints public perception from which a jury pool will be selected. And it taints the jury pool automatically. She then referred to Mr. Kelly in text messages as a pedophile. That is a presumption of guilt. She broke the law. When you say someone is a pedophile who has not been in front of a judge, who has not had his case heard, that is a presumption of guilt, and it violates the law in all 50 states.
Chicago Tribune reports that State's Attorney Kim Foxx sent text messages to her top deputy, Joseph Maggots, calling Smollett a washed-up celeb, but also said that compared to R&B star R. Kelly, Smollett had been overcharged. Quoting here, pedophile with 4 victims, 10 counts. Washed-up celeb who lied to cops, 16, meaning counts. In the messages, Foxx acknowledges having recused herself, but is clearly still involved. Quoting, just because we can charge something doesn't mean we should. Maggots responds, quote, agreed. We can get a hard look at how we charge the cases and get it to something that covers what needs to be covered without being excessive and ultimately pointless.
At the time of these statements and texts, Kim Foxx had zero proof of any crime. She had zero proof that anyone was a victim. Yet publicly, she made Robert Kelly, the artist R. Kelly, appear guilty before ever talking to anyone. This is illegal. This is unconstitutional. And everything that happened prior to that broke the law. Kim Foxx stated on a television show she had opened an investigation into Robert Kelly, but it was not based on surviving R. Kelly. And yet, that's all she referred to in her press conference and on each interview that she gave. She referred to the people in surviving R. Kelly. She then referred to them as victims. So there's a presumption that a crime had taken place, a presumption that Robert Kelly committed the crimes and he is guilty, and there's a presumption that these females are telling the truth. She put that on television, and then she said she was a victim, which then says she aligns with these people on this scripted television show. All of that is a violation of constitutional rights, and it breaks the law. She said it on television. Her text messages were aired on television, and because of the nature of this case, it was aired all around the world. She referred to him, being Robert Kelly, as a pedophile. That means you have tainted the jury pool. You have tainted prospective jurors. You have put into the national news, the international news, that the state's attorney in the city of Chicago, in the state of Illinois, has presumed Robert Kelly guilty of crimes. All of this before he was even arrested. All of this before anyone even went to the police. Kim Foxx broke the law. She violated constitutional rights. She violated Robert Kelly's due process rights. Based on Kim Foxx's actions alone, there was no legal standing, no probable cause to open an investigation into Robert Kelly. Not by the state of Illinois and not by the FBI. The FBI piggybacked on her interviews. They piggybacked on her work. She led the charge and they followed. Both people in the investigation at the state level and the federal level, both females, watched Surviving R. Kelly. And as a result of a television show that was scripted, they opened an investigation into an innocent man. That is illegal. It is breaking the law. It is a violation of constitutional rights. It violates his due process because it was publicly aired all over television, all over social media. It tainted any prospective jury pool that he could potentially have. And it opened the floodgates for all types of salacious, false claims by groupies and fans who wanted 15 minutes of fame. Based on the actions of Kim Foxx, illegally opening an investigation, leading to the FBI investigation. All charges against Robert Sylvester Kelly, by law, must be thrown out. The law states you are presumed innocent. The law states it is not your burden to prove your innocence. The law states you have rights to due process. The law states that you have a right to face your accusers. The law states you have a right to a fair and impartial jury. The jury pool has been tainted. The jury pool has already been muddied by the state's attorney, Kim Foxx. Robert Kelly has already been presumed guilty. He has already had his rights violated. Every single charge against Robert Sylvester Kelly by the state of Illinois, by the FBI, must be thrown out based on the law. The law says Robert Sylvester Kelly has been violated. He is the victim. The law says all charges have to be thrown out at the state level and at the federal level. It is law. Majority of people lie. That is statistically proven. Instead of adhering to the law and investigating the fictional show Surviving R. Kelly and the paid actors' stories who appeared, giving them lie detector tests and mental health evaluations, Kim Foxx broke the law. People that appeared on that show were paid for their appearance. They were given gratuities and bonuses for their lies. Drea appeared on Growing Up Hip Hop with her children, with producer from Surviving R. Kelly, who also works on that show, Growing Up Hip Hop Atlanta. Sparkle was giving a record produced by Big Shiz, who is the record producer for Beyonce and Michael Jackson. She's a one-hit wonder. There's no way a producer of his caliber would ever even work with her. The rest of this cast were paid money and or had books published. Lisa Van Allen, Kitty Jones, and others had books ready to be sold at the time that the show aired. They got speaking engagements. They got advertisement on radio, appearances on television shows, all to advertise not only the show, but the books, the records, the TV shows that they were appearing in as payment for their acting roles on Surviving R. Kelly. Kim Foxx violated constitutional 1st, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th Amendment rights when she opened an investigation into R. Kelly based on fraud and fiction of a television show. She had no probable cause. There was no legal standing because she never verified the validity of the show. That is as unlawful as opening an investigation into Barney Rubble for stealing Fred Flintstone's bowling ball, or for investigating Luke and Laura on General Hospital for potential rape, or investigating Gilligan, Professor, Mary Ann, and Ginger to see how did Gilligan get stuck on the island. And worse, to investigate the cast of Dallas to discover who shot JR. Surviving R. Kelly was a fictitious television show with a script. Actors were prepped 1 year in advance, and they were paid money and gratuities for their appearance. Their lies were omitted. Most of the truth of the story was omitted. No one had evidence. No one had been to a doctor. No one had been to the police. No one had been to a therapist or a psychiatrist. They all went straight to hair and makeup for a television show. No one went to the police with evidence and then brought their cases to her office. No one came to her to report a crime with evidence in hand. Kim Foxx pleaded publicly, soliciting people. She opened a hotline based off of a television show. Kim Foxx placed the burden of proof on R. Kelly to prove his innocence. There was a presumption of guilt that violated the law in all 50 states. It incited unlawful behavior. It tainted a potential jury pool. It violated due process and American Bar Association rules of ethics. On January 8th, 2019, Kim Foxx is the one that broke the law. Avenatti, Gayle King, Nancy Grace, news media all around the world broke the law and violated constitutional rights of R. Kelly, inciting unlawful behavior, preventing him from having a fair trial because all painted him as guilty. All kept using the word victim. All implied he was guilty, a case had been adjudicated, and he was found to be guilty of a crime. All of them tainted a potential jury pool. R. Kelly can't have a fair trial based on Kim Foxx, based on the news media, based on social media, based on Mute R. Kelly. He has been prevented from being able to defend himself against all allegations. That is illegal. You can't accuse R. Kelly of breaking the law as Kim Foxx, Mute R. Kelly, Me Too, mainstream media breaks the law. You cannot have an illegal process. You cannot have everyone breaking the law but land on a legal state and FBI investigation. It defies logic. It defies reason. It defies our Constitution. It defies all laws in this country. It is illegal to have a legal process that began with an illegal premise. The FBI and state investigations grew out of an illegal premise. It sits on an unlawful foundation. The Mueller investigation was set up to invalidate the presidency of Trump, based on the assumption there was illegal activity during his campaign. Based on law, if the start was illegal, then what followed was invalid. It was illegal. If this is true for the presidency, it's true for the entire case of R. Kelly. The beginning was illegal. The middle was illegal. Everyone broke the law and violated numerous constitutional rights of R. Kelly and all Americans. Therefore, the FBI and state investigations and the charges that followed are invalid, unlawful. They cannot stand. You cannot accuse R. Kelly of breaking the law, as everyone from Mute R. Kelly, Surviving R. Kelly, Me Too, Time's Up, Kim Foxx, Avenatti, Gayle King, CNN, CBS, mainstream media, and a plethora of social media outlets break the law. Either we are a law-based society or we're not. Either we uphold our laws and constitutional rights or we don't. If an illegal, fraudulent docuseries can have investigations open and charges thrown at R. Kelly, surely a legally sound docuseries based on logic and law and our Constitution must have these investigations and charges thrown out, dismissed for being illegal. All R. Kelly investigations, cases, charges at state and federal level must cease. They must be thrown out, because everything that preceded it was unlawful and unconstitutional. Everyone that participated in this broke the law. To let this proceed is to allow terrorism to overthrow our judicial system. To allow this to stand allows a lawless society to exist. The FBI investigation happened because of fraud. The FBI investigation happened because of unlawful behavior that preceded it. It is akin to an illegal search and seizure. If there was no probable cause, regardless of what was uncovered, the entire case is unlawful. Based on rule of law, there was never legal standing to investigate R. Kelly. Every step along the way, laws were broken and constitutional rights violated. His rights as an American citizen have been violated since 2017. Therefore, all charges against R. Kelly must be thrown out because they began on an illegal premise. They sit on an illegal foundation. America must demand rule of law be adhered to. We must demand Mute R. Kelly, Surviving R. Kelly, Me Too, Time's Up, Women of Color, Kim Fox, Michael Avenatti, Gayle King, CNN, and other mainstream media and social media outlets, and everyone that participated in this assault on our judicial system be investigated and held accountable for breaking the law and attempting to hijack our judicial system by rogue, vigilante, radical, domestic, feminist terrorists and the paid actors they used to carry out their coup d'etat, their attempt to overthrow patriarchy in the United States of America. This is a constitutional crisis. This is a crisis on our entire judicial system. We must make this right.
The down years, because we didn't run. We didn't run. We played through all that stuff. Can I say, Mamba out?
Fraud is the wrongful or criminal deception intended to result in financial or personal gain. In law, fraud is intentional deception to secure unfair or unlawful gain, or to deprive a victim of a legal right. Fraud can violate civil or criminal law. It may cause no loss of money or property or legal right, but still be an element of another civil or criminal wrong. The purpose of fraud may be monetary gain or other benefits. Due process is a requirement that legal matters be resolved according to the established rules and principles. Due process simply means the law must be followed. Your rights must be protected. Under procedural due process, you have the fairness of the procedures used to enforce the laws. Under substantive due process, you have fairness within the laws themselves. That means the laws to enforce the law and the laws themselves must be protected for the individual. There are two types of due process. The first is procedural due process, which is based on principles of fundamental fairness, which addresses the legal procedures that are required to be followed at the state and federal level. Substantive due process is principle allowing courts to protect certain fundamental rights from government interference, even if procedural protections are present or the rights are not specifically mentioned elsewhere in the U.S. Constitution. Within the due process law, you have entrapment, you have prosecutorial misconduct, you have the need to have proof, the burden of proof, and presumptions, like the presumption of innocence. You also have clarity in criminal statutes and void for vagueness. And the steps within the due process are investigation, charging, initial hearing and arraignment, discovery, plea bargaining, preliminary hearing, pretrial motions, and trial. All of these steps and more are a part of the due process rights. Under the First Amendment, every American has the right to free speech. You have the right to attend any concert. You have the right to listen to any music. In the Mute R. Kelly campaign, as a result of a fraudulent television show, Surviving R. Kelly, Dreamhampton, Me Too, Time's Up, all conspired to deny every American that is a fan of R. Kelly their due process, their First Amendment right to listen to his music, to attend his concert, to stand by his side. If anyone defended him, they were labeled a pedophile sympathizer, an enabler. That is to deny millions of people their First Amendment right. The Fourth Amendment states every person has a right to secure their persons, their home, their effects, their property. No one has a right to unreasonable seizures or searches, and this shall not be violated without a warrant. Every person has a right to protect what they own, their job, their personal effects, their property, their intellectual property. The Fifth Amendment states, no person shall be held to answer for an infamous crime unless indicted by a grand jury. No person shall be the subject of the same offense twice, and no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The Sixth Amendment states, every person has the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury, a jury who has not been swayed, a jury who has not been previously influenced. And they have a right to be informed the nature and the cause of the accusation. That is everyone's Sixth Amendment right. The Seventh Amendment states, every person in the United States that is a citizen has a right to a fair trial by jury. That right shall be preserved. No fact shall be tried by a jury other than in a court of the United States. The Eighth Amendment says no person shall have excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. When Rkelly was brutally, savagely destroyed in the court of public opinion without any evidence, this was a violation of his Eighth Amendment right. It was cruel and unusual punishment because no one had a case in court. No one had adjudication by a judge that said a crime had been committed. No one had even gone to the police. It was a violation of the Eighth Amendment rights of Rkelly and of all his fans. The Ninth Amendment says your rights are retained. That means every right in the Constitution is afforded to every American. Every amendment, every law, every right is retained by every person of this country. Any violation of that is a violation of your Ninth Amendment right. The 14th Amendment says all persons are provided equal protection under the law. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, property without due process of law. To deny any persons within this jurisdiction the equal protection of the law is a violation of the 14th Amendment.
At the heart of the 14th Amendment is the definition of citizens in America. It is through this definition that all the rights we cherish are granted and defended.
The right to have rights.
And under the law, everyone in America gets equal protection.
Was made for you and me.
My fellow Americans, this is a problem which faces us all.
We talk about equality a lot in America. We talk about justice. The 14th Amendment was intended to make that vision real. The 14th Amendment is a promise of equality for all. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities
Of the citizens of the United States.
It says we are all deserving of empathy and dignity.
I'm scared, but I'm gonna stay. 'Cause I'm tired of running.
Nor shall shall any state deprive any person of life,
Liberty or property?
Nor deny any person within its jurisdiction
The equal protection of the law. I'm just gonna wait.
The founders wrote life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They made that promise.
This fight is for a more perfect union.
When the second founders wrote the 14th Amendment, they put the word equal into the Constitution, another promise.
This is why we're here. To tell America's story. The story of the 14th Amendment.
I'm gonna be saved.
When I began this docuseries, August of 2019, the goal was to create a legal route for Robert Kelly to have all of his charges dismissed, to create reasonable doubt, and for him to win his case. I have systematically gone through every legal argument that will be made in the court of law before the judges at the state and federal level, and I have created a legal avenue using the law as my basis to make sure Robert had a great possibility that all charges must be thrown out at the state and federal level, that reasonable doubt is created with the judge and the jury. Robert was attacked with legal arguments, with legal charges, within a legal system, state and federal charges that can cost him his life, that has already cost him his career. The goal of my documentary, which is based on fact and is based on law, was designed with the single intent to get Robert Kelly out of this legal mess, to argue legal points in a court of law so that he could win at the state and federal level. You don't win a legal fight with an emotional argument. You win with legal arguments at every point of discussion. Whatever they say, you have to do the work legally and come up with a legal argument to win. This is what I've worked on since January of 2019. Devising a legal argument, a legal route for Robert Kelly to win in New York, Chicago, and in every other case that comes up at the criminal and the civil level. You must create reasonable doubt. You must follow the law to help Robert out of this situation. I have adhered to that since day one, and I have created this docuseries, my docuseries, specifically with that end game in mind. Get Robert out of this legally. Kim Foxx and the FBI have presented a strong legal argument, and they have done so within the legal system, within the courts. Robert will not get out of this by yelling and screaming and running up and down the streets and making emotional pleas to anyone. You have to have a legal argument that can be presented in a court of law before a jury in order for Robert to win this. Since August of 2019, I have been using every information, every key point that I got from their argument, and I have found the legal basis to be able to counter that in a court of law. This documentary that I wrote and directed and produced, August of 2019, has been systematically, strategically designed with that one end goal: win in a court of law. Win by having all charges thrown out, win by creating reasonable doubt, win by using the law to argue the law. This is a legal problem for Robert Kelly. It demands a legal solution. It demands that you look at it from a legal point of view, you dissect it from a legal perspective, and that you argue it with strong legal points using the law. I have sent this documentary to Robert Kelly back in 2019. I have sent it to his lawyers, his legal team, and I have made sure that the key people that can help Robert have this information. I have also been sending it to rich, powerful men who can help Robert, people in the entertainment industry, and others who I feel can benefit Robert. This is a legal problem. It requires a legal solution. And I have been working systematically since day one to create legal avenues for Robert to have all of his charges thrown out, to have his case dismissed, to win within a court of law. Based on the work that I've done, based on every key point that I have looked at in what I consider to be the problem areas, I believe there is high probability all charges can be thrown out. By law, all charges must be thrown out. I believe the argument that I presented in this docuseries, that I have strategically laid out one segment at a time. Segment one, we talked about Tucker Carlson and the women's movement. 2 was Kim Fox. 3 was Avenatti and the mainstream media. 4 was Mute Rkelly. 5 was groupies. 6 was rich, powerful men being targets to overthrow patriarchy. And then 7, I focused on surviving Rkelly. 8, I focused on Me Too and Time's Up. And then I concluded with all charges must be thrown out based on the law. I have laid out step by step, segment by segment, why following the law, based on the law in the United States, all charges must be thrown out against Robert Kelly at the state and federal level, because it is law. I followed the law. I strategically argued strong legal points and backed it up with the law and backed it up with the evidence. I presented the evidence in the video, and I also presented the law-based argument so that his lawyers, his legal team, and Robert himself understood you can win this case. By law, all charges must be thrown out. By law, there is enormous reasonable doubt for Robert to win his case. That was the goal of me putting together this docuseries, to help Robert win at the state and federal level. I have copyrighted every bit of this docuseries, all segments, and the copyright has been filed back in 2019. I own all the rights to this documentary. It is my intellectual property. It is my strategic thinking that devised every argument, and it has been legally copyrighted.
At the heart of the 14th Amendment is the definition of citizens in America. It is through this definition that all the rights we cherish are granted and defended.
The
right to have rights.
And under the law, everyone in America gets equal protection.
Was made for you and me. My fellow Americans, this is a problem which faces us all.
We talk about equality a lot in America. We talk about justice. The 14th Amendment was intended to make that vision real.
The 14th Amendment is a promise of equality for all.
No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities
Of the citizens of the United States.
It says we are all deserving of empathy and dignity.
I'm scared, but I'm gonna stay. 'Cause I'm tired of running.
Nor shall any state deprive any person of life,
Liberty or property.
nor deny any person within its jurisdiction
The equal protection of the law.
I'm just gonna wait.
The founders wrote life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They made that promise.
This fight is for a more perfect union.
When the second founders wrote the 14th Amendment, they put the word equal into the Constitution, another promise.
This is why we're here. To tell America's story. The story of the 14th Amendment.
I'm gonna be sad.